Hey, what's up, guys? Little man with a big opinion here. And for today's video, I'm going to just talk about things in the news that I think are important for us preppers to know about. All right, so the first article I have from the AP. Congress seeks compromise to boost computer chip industry. So we've talked about just the shortages in general that we've had, and you know they're finally starting to do something. And when I say start to do something, the House has made a bill, the Senate has made a bill. There's no telling if this is actually going to do anything. Um, you know, they're hopeful. At least the Democrats are hopeful to get this pushed through before November to try to boost why people should vote for them. As a prepper, the only thing this chip shortage is doing is making some of the products that we buy more expensive. Basically, anything that has modern technology, you know, the phone that I'm recording this on, the laptop I'm looking at these videos on, the car that I'm driving. I really don't know where like the Jackery or Goal Zero, solar systems. I don't know where they're sourced, but I wouldn't doubt it if certain parts of those um, are part of this chip shortage. So it's going to make those things more expensive. They mostly only talk about cars just because it's a really big ticket item. But as a prepper, you might be looking at getting a more reliable vehicle, something that you can kind of modify to meet your prepping needs. And because of this chip shortage, it's kind of difficult to do that. So we'll see if, Congress does anything with this. Again, I'm not trying to be, overtly political. It's just, the Republicans, obviously, what they want out of this bill, they want to keep as much as that. The Democrats want to do the same thing. And the Democrats are going to be a little bit more lenient because, the polling isn't showing good things for them. But because they're going to, bicker back and forth, it could be a while, even after, this bill gets passed and signed into law, before we see any use come out of it. All right, second article comes from NPR. Riots erupt in Sweden over rallies by an anti-Islam group. So, not getting political on it, there's one lawyer who created this anti-immigration website and group. And he basically said, this mass influx of Islamic immigrants aren't good for our country. And so he started holding public events where he's burning the Quran and weird stuff like that. I'm not saying I condone him burning the Quran as a, fairly important religious text. The libertarian in me says, if it belongs to you, uh, do whatever you want as long as it's legal. But the social unrest that's coming out of it is not good for everyone. Um, in one night, they said 12 cops were injured. Um, in another town, a few hundred people, set fire to a bunch of cars, tires, and dustbins. Um, and so I do believe there's like a middle ground way to um, approach this, but people are being extreme on several different sides. And I would be surprised if something like this happened in the US. If someone started holding, Bible burning uh, rallies, you know, conservatives and Christians would say, look, it's the new Hitler. But if a conservative group started getting every single, book that they believed had CRT in it and started burning them, then the left would be saying, look, it's Hitler. And people would show up, for one side and the other side, and they would inevitably clash, not crash. So, most of our social unrest that we've seen recently in the US has been race based and class based. Um, I'm going back to thinking about Wall Street, but here recently, if you can convince, you know, 100 people to show up somewhere for X reason, then you can equally find another 100 people that will show up in opposition to that. Uh, so, thought that story was kind of interesting. Um, it pulls at different sides of me because, a libertarian would say, you know, do whatever you want as long as it's not overtly affecting me, which your religion, a important religious symbol might be a pretty big ask, but you know, the other side says, there are probably better ways of telling your government that you don't like all these immigrants coming. But that's just me. All right, two articles left. This one's a little worrying. Avian flu case found at East Dungle Township, Pennsylvania poultry farm. So this has been a really big issue in Ohio and Iowa and kind of those upper Midwest states. Um, I don't remember if it was City Prepping or Canadian Prepper uh, that when I first heard about it, apparently over 12 million chickens had already been uh, infected, and this is why we're going to see a meat shortage specifically in chickens. Uh, you know, Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture is on high alert after seeing its first case of the avian flu in nearly 4 decades. Um, Pennsylvania's poultry industry is a $7.1 billion yearly industry. Uh, there's no immediate public concern for people in Pennsylvania, and we are prepared to respond to the agricultural issue. However, wild birds carrying this virus, um, wild birds carry the virus and do not respect property or state lines. Anyone visiting a farm should be aware that your vehicles and shoes may carry the virus from other places you have walked. Clean them thoroughly and stay away from poultry barns unless you have to be there. Uh, so it affects all birds. They've got a video here saying, this bald eagle has died from this bird flu. Uh, no cases detected amongst humans. Uh, Basically, they're saying anything that you know, shoot for hunters as well. Um, have your ducks and dove and other just wild game fowl inspected. Uh, and so it's kind of worrying because we eat a lot of meat, and I remember Tim Cast, he briefly talked about it because they've got a decent amount of chickens. I think they started with like 10 or 15, and when they got another uh, like 10, they were told to isolate them for uh, about 3 weeks just to make sure they didn't have anything that they were introducing to their already healthy chicken flock. And so as a prepper, knowing the signs of bird flu and you know quarantining your animals and taking care of them is pretty important, especially if you're trying to be self-sustainable. But this last article, um, didn't know if I was going to showcase it, but as a prepper, it kind of has meaning. It's from the BBC, the unspoken weight discrimination problem at work. And basically, in the article, it talks about this one woman in a fashion industry that her manager said, "You're overweight and it is affecting, our business practice." Um, Generally, for the longest time, uh, people that worked in certain industries, you kind of needed to look a certain way. Uh, I'm just thinking of like Victoria's Secret or, male swim models. They want that quote unquote perfect looking um, specimen to showcase their stuff. And in recent years, it's kind of, shifted to, this is what we think is, peak human physical performance. But we also have these, for guys, it's been called uh, like tall and hefty. And for women, it's been called plus size. As a prepper, your weight kind of matters. Um, I think what matters more is being able to handle your body. So being able to, run and hike and just being physically capable of, taking care of yourself and your family is super important. The U.S. has a big problem with, you know, diabetes and obesity, and I'm the perfect example. It took me about a year to drop 25 pounds, and we're getting closer and closer to, not having to take medication, and it's just um, mitigated by, diet and exercise. Because as a prepper, if you can't produce the medicine you're taking, which in most cases we can't, um, insulin's super hard to make, and most of our other medications are a bit difficult to produce on your own. So being as healthy as you can be makes it to where you don't have to worry about you know is this medicine going to run out. Uh, so for the most part, they're basically just saying we've made it illegal to discriminate against race, sex, uh, religious practice and things like that. But you know being overweight is an issue, uh, and it's slowly being more and more decented or more people are being, um, propped up and kind of given a pass on this because of the amount of medicine that we have that we can just medicate away our problems. And in a grid down situation, you might not have access to medication to deal with those problems. Uh, so if you want to take a look at, oh, I do have one more. It got moved over. So, Hungary to face a shortage of basic food items due to the price cap. Hungarian government put a maximum price on 6 food items that's supposed to officially end May 1st. Prime Minister Viktor Orban um, said last week that they intend to extend the measure. So inflation was going nuts, and they, tried to mitigate it by making a maximum cap for the food. And as the cap nears, or as the cap deadline is set to end, Hungarians have started to buy up as much food as they can. So, as a prepper, if you're not actively storing more food, then this could be an issue that you run into. Especially, COVID cases increasing in China is slowing their production. People aren't getting many supplies from Russia right now in retaliation with their war. Um, Estimates from Ukraine has said anywhere from 10 to 40% of their crops won't be harvested because they're worried about defending their country. Uh, and it's mostly going to affect poor African, South America, and Asian countries. For us here in the States and Europe, it's mostly just going to be price increases. Just because there is less access to the abundance of food that we're used to. But with that being said, uh, I'll put a link to, I just clicked on Google News, and they've got it split into sections. So this is from The Guardian, the Reuters, Fox News, Los Angeles Times, CNN. They kind of compile everything into one area for you. But with that being said, like, subscribe, share, and comment. And with that, I'll catch you in the next one.